There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're making today. That is wild rice. Can't wait to show you my recipe. Well, howdy folks. Welcome to my kitchen. This is Texas Cooking Today and I'm Stuart. Today I'm going to be making a wild rice pilaf, or wild rice, okay? And it is not all too different from the one you find in the box with the orange covering on it, okay? And I'm not going to mention brands because that just doesn't matter here. This has a great flavor and you're going to find out how similar it is to that, although not identical. It is a delicious dish, and when you see how easy it is to make, well, I'm sure you're going to add it to your permanent collection. Now, come on over. Let me show you these great ingredients, and we're going to get started making wild rice. Come on. Okay, the ingredients that I'm going to be using, and so you'll know, I do my ingredients quantities toward the end of the video. So we'll take a look at these again and go over the quantity of everything in a little while, but I want to show you how it's made first. We're using beef broth, a little bit of olive oil, some water, basmati rice, long grain wild rice, and on our spices and flavorings here, I've got some mustard, paprika, salt, oregano, onion powder, garlic powder, and great combination of flavors there that work out great. Now we're going to be starting off by cooking this right here. This is our long grain rice, and it takes about 35 to 40 minutes to get it cooked enough before we then start with this. So there's a little difference in timing, but overall not a hard dish to make. Okay, let's get started getting this all cooked up. Now, I need to mention one thing before I get started. Basmati rice and wild rice cook at vastly different intervals, okay? This takes 12 to 15 minutes to cook. This, a whole different story. This takes 45 minutes to cook. Okay, so what we do is we want to start this off early, getting it into some water, letting it just cook until it's softened. Now, just in case you're wondering, how do they make it work with the boxed mix, where it all cooks at the same amount of time? Well, if you notice, that boxed mix cooks for a long period of time, so they went with a long cooking white rice. But also, they're using a par-cooked wild rice. So the white rice that they put into the packet has already been cooked to a certain degree. That's the reason their pieces are bigger than this. All right? And so all you have to do there is to get it rehydrated and cook it lightly, and it's finished. And in that amount of time, the white rice is finished. That's how the box mixes make it work. At home, though, when you get your wild rice, it's just a raw product. So we're going to get started with that. And that's as simple as 1 cup of water to your 1/4 cup of wild rice. Mix them together, bring that to a boil, and then let it simmer, folks. This is not hard, is it? Okay, so I'm going to cover that. I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and then as I mentioned, I'm going to simmer it, and I'm going to simmer it for a total of 35 minutes. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and set this for now. So we got our countdown on 35 minutes. The rest of this is all pretty easy. We simply take the beef broth, mix in the spices. Once it comes to a boil, we add the basmati rice and the pre-cooked wild rice. And if there's any water left in this, we're going to drain that first. If it gets low and I need to add water, it's not a problem. Just add a little more water. Still a 35-minute cook time. All right, I think, yeah. See, that's come up to a boil now. And it's only been a couple of minutes, 3 minutes here. And so I'm going to reduce this temperature to a low simmer and just let it sit there and simmer. Very simple, very simple. Don't overwork this, okay? Keep it very, very basic and simple. Now back here I have another another pot for the final dish. That's all we need. All right, this is the point that I need to stop and talk to you for just a minute about the rice you're using. I'm not using your basic wild rice. You heard me say the word basmati. It is a little more cream colored than your average white rice, and it has a beautiful aroma. It's distinctly different from regular white rice. If you're wondering, why do I always use basmati? Okay, I don't always use it. I use it a lot. Number one, I have a huge amount of it. I buy it 25 pounds at a time. Number two, it is a low starch rice, so it doesn't stick together when you cook it, okay? It falls apart. The grains flow and fall apart easily. And that's a quality I love in rice. I don't necessarily like it all sticky. Sometimes I do. Some things it's great to have sticky rice, but this is not one of those times. A good wild rice pilaf should flow and be soft. And, you know, the boxed mixes, they use oil in those mixes like I have out here. Now, I'm not using much of this, and it's not to make it flow easier. It is simply to add a little bit of flavor to it, a little olive oil. The quality of basmati is that it's a very herbal kind of flavor. It is a very firm rice once it's cooked, and for dishes like this, it's perfect. So do yourself a favor, invest in a little basmati. It's really worth the time, especially for this dish. Now, the second thing that's cool about it, it cooks fast. 12 to 15 minutes and your basmati's done, all right? You're ready to serve it. So when it comes to cooking this dish, what takes so long is that long grain wild rice. And you're going to find that in little bitty boxes, usually right where you find all of the rest of the rice. So it won't be in a large container. It's in a real small container. Somewhat expensive, but you're not using as much of it, folks. So go ahead and try this out. You're going to love it. We're going to get on with the rest of this as soon as this is cooked. Hey, there it is. We have 35 minutes of cook time on our wild rice. Now, we've got a bunch of water in there with it too. So I'm just going to run it through a strainer, and then I've got my wild rice ready to go. Here we have it. It's ready to use. Okay. And we have our pot here. Simple enough. Let's get the beef broth in. I'm going to go ahead right now and increase the flame on that to high. I'm going to start adding in my spices. And I guarantee you this is a fantastic spice combination. Okay, this is now coming up in temperature. Before I put any of my wild rice or my basmati rice in here, I go ahead and bring it up in temperature. Bring it up to a full boil. There we go. And once I get it to a full boil, I put my rice in there and I add just a little bit of olive oil on top and cover it again and let it simmer. Now, it's important, bring it to a boil before reducing and allowing it to simmer. And at that point, it'll be 12 to 15 minutes on the cook time. All right, it looks like, yep, looks like I got a full boil. I'm ready to go in with my rice. Now, the first one, I'm just going to place my long grain wild rice, and there was a little left in here, so I'm going to do myself a favor and fish every bit of that out. And I like that stuff. It has a really nice kind of a nutty flavor to it. And I think once you try it, if you've never had it, you may end up liking it a whole lot. This was also the same rice that was eaten by the Native Americans. All right. Still got a high temperature under it. Bringing it up into a boil again. And as soon as it does, I'll reduce it to a simmer, low heat, and put a lid on it and just let it cook. It'll be 12 to 15 minutes once we start that. All right, now no, I did not forget my last ingredient, which is just a couple of teaspoons of olive oil. Doesn't take any more, just a light flavor of it, and it needs to be a good quality extra virgin. There we have it. Once this is cooked up, it's going to be delicious. I can't wait. All right. Patience. So I'm going to set this to begin with. Excuse me, I'm having a hard time speaking today. I'm going to set this at 12 minutes to start. I'll check it at that point. And all I do to check it is I just pull a little bit of the rice back to see if there's water on the bottom. If there is, I continue cooking for a few more minutes. All right, looks like that timer has gone off again. Now it's been 12 minutes, but we need to know if it's done or not. So I'll pull back a little bit. There's still some liquid on the bottom of the pan. I'm going to cover it and give it another couple minutes. 2 to 3 more minutes will be more than enough. Alrighty, my timer has just finished going off, and let's take another look here. Yep, so I can see the bottom of the pan. There's no liquid down there. That means this is finished. Look at that, folks. That was 15 minutes. Once I got the, of course, the wild rice cooked. So there is that. All in all, the whole dish, when you add everything up, you're looking at about an hour cook. Look at the quality of rice that we have here. That's perfect. That is absolutely what I'm looking for in a delicious wild rice pilaf. Wow. Excellent. So the quantity of everything that we have used making this dish today starts right back here. That's 2 cups of beef broth. You only need a couple of teaspoons of olive oil. I used, starting with 1 cup of plain water, and that's to cook off that wild rice, as you've seen. Now the wild rice for this, I recommend 1/4 cup to 1 cup of basmati rice. The basmati, remember, that's very important because it's low starch, the grains are loose, and it has a fantastic flavor for this dish. Now, quantity here is 1 cup of basmati, 1/4 cup of wild rice. On all of the spices in this herb, they're each 1 teaspoon. So it's a teaspoon of mustard, a teaspoon of paprika, teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder. And on our water back here, sometimes if you run low cooking the wild rice, just add a little more water. If there's too much, just drain it off. It's that easy. All right, let's serve this up. So right here I have a little bit of anise, and this is just a little anise leaf. It'll add a nice aroma to this dish, and just a beautiful little garnish there. And see what I mean by you don't have to worry about that sticky rice issue? How this has got a beautiful kind of a free-flowing state to it. It's very loose. So there you have it, folks. That's wild rice. Well, there it is, all plated up. We've ended up with a beautiful, beautiful dish here. This is something that you can add to most any meal and it will be impressive. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you I've had this before. And frankly, I would rather have my recipe for wild rice than any box recipe. That's good. Definitely top quality. This, if I ordered like a wild rice in a good restaurant, I would expect to get something on this level. Give it a try, you're going to love it. Thank you very much for watching. Do me a favor. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. I got rice in my teeth. Click the bell notification, okay? That way you get notified when I put up a video. Also, please, thumbs up if you like this recipe. Drop me a comment down below in the comments. I really love that. And I do read those, believe it or not, all of them. And I appreciate you leaving that. Please, folks, have a good day. Enjoy your rice. And I'll talk to you later on the next video.